Come on, bitch, let's go. Come on, get ready, bitches. You haven't seen nothing yet. Come on.
Valentino, Versace, Lamborghini, Bugatti. I got money to burn. I'm single and I'm naughty.
Come on.
Tiffany's, Cartier, Gucci, Armani.
Come on.
Break out your black card, boys. It's time to party.
Hi, you guys. So we're going to do something a little bit different on today's show. First and foremost, I want to talk about some weird, mysterious stuff that came out about Diddy. And how about me calling it last weekend on episode 201 that Eric Adams was going to get indicted and that it was going to be somehow tied to Diddy. And sure enough, after I dropped that episode, I think it was on Wednesday, he gets indicted. And the next thing you know, people are reporting on that too. So I felt pretty good about that. I beat the crowd on that one. Anyway, but I have some really cool stories that have been sent to me by different patrons, and I want to play them for you. Some of them are about Diddy, some of them are about Tupac. There's one about Madonna and some others. And I want you guys to hear these stories so we are all on the same page on the Patreon and out. In addition to that, got into that rabbit hole, which was the Adrenochrome Witch by Sean P Diddy Combs that appeared. Now, this isn't what you think. I know when you hear adrenochrome, you're like, oh my God, extreme conspiracy theory, here we come. This is actually not about the book that Sean Diddy allegedly wrote about this. This is about some people who seem to have ties to Diddy, where they have insider information that they dropped well in advance of us all finding out about it. And this leads me into kind of a mystery about these people. And I went on a dive, and I'm going to tell you the whole story today about what I found out. And I think it's really going to blow your mind. And I've got a bunch of Salt Lake City gossip, and I don't have anywhere to drop it. So I'm dropping it on the pod this week. So before we get going on the main topics of today's show, I did want to share this tea with you. So you remember that I talked about in one of my shows, Fernando Borghese, who's the co-founder and president and COO of DMS, or Digital Media Solutions. That's Louis Ruelas' company. He had posted, following Joe Marinucci's post about DMS, a very positive message about the company that was forward thinking, just saying, listen, basically, even though we're going bankrupt, I want you guys to know that everything is going to be okay. And, we've been around since 2012 and we didn't come this far to just fail and all this crap. Well, underneath his message, there was a note that I saw, and boy, did it catch my eye. It was from a guy named Donnie West, and he must have left DMS and started his own company. It says, Donnie West, owner and digital director at Digital Works Innovations. But listen to what he says in response to Fernando Borghese of DMS, and I guess Joe Marinucci too, in a way. He says, I guess that house of cards you built fell. Integrity matters. You should learn that at some point. I saw 10 years ago how unethical you were. Remember me not wanting to fudge numbers for you? Math is math, I think I said, but good luck. Fudging the numbers? Meanwhile, a bunch of patrons are going to see Teresa Giudice live. She's doing her own show by herself, no one with her. 65 people, I think, bought tickets to it. It was pretty high priced too. So, good for her. She's definitely making, $10K or something off that one evening of stuff, and not bad. She's alone. It's hard to sell tickets. And Villains is coming out, and undoubtedly it's connected to that. And I'm sure the whole family will be there. Anyway, dying to hear what tea comes out of that night coming up. So hopefully we'll know soon enough. I've asked a few of the patrons to report back to me, or maybe even do a show if something really good happens about it. All right, so let's get started on this really fun, multi-genred episode. And, if you trust me, you'll know it'll be a good one and worth a listen, because I pretty much know what you guys are into, and I try to always tell the reality TV gossip or whatever I'm covering in a way that I think you will stay interested, for sure. And today is no different. All right, so let's get get started.
Come on, bitch, let's go.
So first, I want to start out with a story by a woman named Claudia Jordan. She's been on a bunch of different television shows, reality TV, etc. She was a Deal or No Deal girl, just like my friend Sunshine Tutt was, and Meghan Markle, and she's really pretty. Okay, so she's now older, but she's still gorgeous. So anyway, she dropped this story about her experience with Diddy after the BET Awards. The BET Awards, actually back in the day, were really kind of dangerous to go to. There was a lot of fights that would break out and kind of gang member stuff and would happen. Like, we were in the audience and, you know, like there would be like a gang fight. It was really bizarre. But that's how it was in the old days. So I was kind of surprised by this story, but not really. I did go to like 2 or 3 of the BET Awards, and that was just my experience. I think at one, there was even a moment where there was like a commercial break and someone had a gun. I mean, it was pretty crazy. All right, let me play this for you.
I met Diddy one time. I was at the BET Awards, and she heard him say he would make me disappear. If I thought you did this on purpose, I would have had you hurt. There's been some lying assholes on the Instagram, on the media, social media, that have said stuff about me. They try to tie me to things and meet me as well. But I don't know how many times I'll tell you. I met Diddy one time. I was at the BET Awards in 2008, I think it was, when MySpace was still around. I was at rehearsal. He was at rehearsal, and he comes up to me and says, what parties are you going to tonight? I was like, I don't know. Do you know what the parties are? And he was like, yeah. So he got my phone number, and I said he would let me know what the poppin' place were. I was like, cool. That's it. I went back to my house, got changed, came back for the award show, and I presented at the BET Awards when I was on the show Ballers. All right, it was a sports show on BET. Yeah. So when I was on stage, he texted me and says, "You look so pretty." He's like, "Come backstage. We're all having drinks." It's a bunch of us. I was like, "All right, I'm bringing my best friend Alta, who introduced me to me." We go backstage. We had some drinks. I had one of them cheap ass disposable cameras. Okay, I said, "Ooh, can we get some pictures?" We took a picture. Anyone that knows me knows how playful I am. I put my hand on his face like this, and he was behind me like, you know. And I put it on my MySpace, right? I put all the people I met. Patti LaBelle, LL Cool J, the picture with Diddy, Kim Kardashian, all the people. If anyone can get into my old MySpace, you can see all the pictures. He never called me that night to tell me what party he was going to. I didn't hear from him. The next day, I get a gang of text messages and phone calls from the New York number, from his number, saying, "Baby girl, why are our personal pictures on Media Takeout?" I said, "What's Media Takeout?" I didn't know what Media Takeout was at the time. He was like, "Call Fred," gave me his bat line, and "Get this off." I go, "Get what off?" I went and looked. It was like, Diddy leaves Cassie for Deal or No Deal model. I was horrified. A, I don't do the other girl shit. I'm very adamant against that. B, I don't want to get attached to Diddy like that. I was cool with Kim Porter. It was not a good look for me, and he just had the twins. So anyways, I started calling, trying to get the shit taken down. This motherfucker texted me 56 times in one day, and his moods went from, "Baby girl, why are our pictures too? If I thought you did this on purpose, I would have had you hurt." And it got crazy. So I called him back one time with my publicist friend on the line, and she heard him say that he would make me disappear. So then I had to buck up back with him and said, "Look, motherfucker, don't talk to me like that. I'm not scared of you." This is before I heard about some of the other shitty people, right? Hanging people upside down out of buildings. So I was popping off like, "Man, fuck you. You ain't about to talk to me like that." And then he goes, "What are you wearing?" And his tone changed. And I go, "What?" I never talked to him again. He never called me after that. And I have the phone still. I just have to, I couldn't charge it. The charge port went dead. So I still kept it, right? I have it. So fast forward years later, I'm at Howard's homecoming. An SUV drives by me, and someone says, "Someone wants to talk to you." And roll down the window, it's Diddy. And he goes, "Oh, you can't speak?" And I was like, I didn't think we were friends after the last time I fucking interacted with you. And that is it, you guys.
Now, what was really interesting is you might have heard her say in this story, this was before I knew, he hung people upside down outside of windows and things like that. And that made me wonder about, Diddy's background a little bit more than I knew. And it turns out that his dad, Melvin Combs, was murdered, and he was actually a mobster. And he was murdered because the drug dealers he was doing business with, or, he had a drug exchange happening, thought he was an informant. And so they killed him thinking he was a rat, but he wasn't a rat. And so he gets murdered in this drug deal, like an accident. That is Diddy's dad. Now, he lived in Harlem back when Harlem was kind of dangerous, because there was a period, I'd say before the maybe early 80s, like late 70s, where Harlem was really bad. Like, you didn't want to go there. But then it started to get better when the yuppie movement started to take over Manhattan on the Upper West Side specifically. But Diddy had this to say about his dad. He said, "My father was a hustler. He was a drug dealer. So I learned early in life there were only two ways out of that, dead or in jail." And I think he thought he was going to skip jail, but he didn't. So he was right. And Diddy was known back during this time period for having a really crazy temper, which is where the nickname Puffy came from, because he would puff up and get upset. And so that was where that name came from. Diddy was a hustler like his dad, and he did try to go to university. He went to Howard University, but then he dropped out of Howard University and went to Uptown Records, and then shortly after that became an A&R executive and vice president of Uptown Records. Andre Harrell was working at Uptown Records. He actually died very young, only a few years ago, from heart failure. But Andre Harrell fired Diddy. That was how that went down. And Diddy said that there were too many kings at that one castle, and that was the reason it didn't work out. But he had discovered Biggie Smalls, and that was going to be his big ticket. And this is how Bad Boy Record gets activated and started. Obviously, this sets it up perfectly for it to happen. And he is the big star in 1995 for P Diddy's label, but then he's murdered in 1997 in an East Coast, West Coast feud. And he's only 24 years old. And a lot of people wonder who killed Biggie, because it's still a mystery. But during this period of time, Diddy is figuring out what works in the market, and what works is a formula. And Diddy copies the formula and releases his debut album, and it becomes a huge hit right out of the gate. And ironically, the song he wrote for Biggie when he was murdered ends up being one of the hits that propels this debut album. Now, for years, everybody thought that Suge Knight had hired a hitman that killed Biggie. And why would this be? Well, he was avenging Tupac Shakur's drive-by shooting. Both Biggie and Tupac died in very similar fashions, almost designed to look like East Coast, West Coast gang violence, but I don't think so. It was definitely someone with a business issue with, one of both of them. So the going theme was that Suge killed Biggie to revenge Tupac's death, which was done by Diddy, and that Sean Combs, P Diddy, Puffy was the one who orchestrated Tupac's killing. And so this was the payback. You take someone from my label that's worth a ton of money, and I take someone from your label that's worth a ton of money. Now, remember I mentioned Andre Harrell, who was the head of Uptown Records that fired Diddy. Well, Suge said recently on the podcast that Clive Davis, Russell Simmons, and Andre Harrell, the same guy who was the head of Uptown that fired Diddy, used drugs and alcohol, which Diddy didn't do much of, allegedly, when he was first coming up, to compromise Combs' manhood. So, in other words, well, you can figure it out. Suge said, don't confuse what he's saying with being gay, because these men weren't gay. In his mind, Suge sees it that these men were using this type of sexuality and sexual overstepping with people under the influence of drugs and alcohol to control them, to keep them under their thumb. So this was more than just, hey, can I make you gay because I'm attracted to you? This was, I'm going to, take advantage of you any way I want because I have the power, and then I'm going to use it against you if you step out of line. And Diddy learned that from these guys. And now, as I mentioned last week, why Russell Simmons is hiding in Bali, and Clive Davis suddenly can't remember who Diddy is and pretending that he's got dementia, and Andre Harrell, well, he's dead. Here's Clive Davis being caught by the paparazzi after P. Diddy is arrested. For the full scoop, join the Dishing Drama Dana Patreon. The link is in this audio description. It's only $6 a month, and you'll get the best information and tea about the things you care about, and even the things you don't know you care about. What are you waiting for?